Well, welcome back, everyone, to the North American Challenger Circuit Championships. And we're actually going to be fighting for the first seed out of this one. Granted, going into groups, that is a big difference maker. It decides which side of the groups you end up in. And whether you'll be joining, I believe it's EU2, as well as some of the SBL teams. And then, of course, then also just gets you out now, right? Instead of having to play another game. It's Goritz Trelli. And I think we are going to have a fun set ahead of us. The Hounds taking on the Sages. And this is a matchup coming into this. That's the number 1, the number 2 seed. Very much like Europe, both of them making it to this point.
Oh, yeah.
Except in Europe, or well, I guess I don't know except, I say except, but in Europe, Mambo ran over the Ravens to get the first seed. We'll see what the Hounds have to do here, because as mentioned just a second ago on the desk, they've been doing pretty well all year, and the Hounds have been doing pretty well this tournament as well. 2-0s down the block. Now, and essentially the gauntlet of SCC teams that they've been slapping around, the Sages are the ones who get to step up and see if they have the capabilities to slow these Hounds down. And Trelli, it is going to be a tough match to begin with. But then on top of that, with the way the Hounds have been playing this weekend,
yeah,
it is very difficult to try and figure out and corner who exactly you want to shut down. That being said, there's one player on the Hounds that has every game essentially been wearing bright neon, waving flags in the air, screaming, "I'm the guy you gotta shut down." And hardly anybody's been able to do it. And a lot of that, I think, falls onto Oathhh in the jungle. It's just been an insane weekend. To the point where even the other day I said we don't need to highlight him too much because he had an entire set where all it was us talking about how good Oathhh was playing. Now he gets his highlights.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? Because Oathhh is such a hard player to actually pin down. His god pool is so diverse. This weekend hasn't been the most diverse. It's pretty much been, hey, can I get Susanoo? No. Can I get Lancelot? Yes. All right, cool. But in times of past, he's played much more than just that, so it's not like you could just say, hey, we banned Susanoo, we banned Lancelot, and that's it, we're going to win the game. And also, if you're not trying to focus out one specific role, focusing out Oathhh does in turn help out the rest of the
everybody
lane.
else gets whatever they want.
Yeah, because then Oathhh can't help everyone out, he's behind. So I imagine that could be a plan here for the Sages. If they are able to shut down Oathhh, would make the rest of their jobs a lot easier because you don't have to worry about this massive force through the jungle ganking your lanes and you know, helping out your lane opponents, things like that. But yeah, it's a tough hill to climb to try and put down the Hounds because of how aggressive they play and how much they play their own style. It's very rare that I watch a Hounds match where I think, oh wow, yeah, they're being pressured. They are not playing the way they like to because they're so dominant. They never give up.
And honestly, that's where a lot of their strength has lied. Even in games where things start to go wrong for them, they just hold on. Yeah. And like that's one of the things that, you know, we talk about the SBL teams. It's good to count yourself among that list if that is the kind of style of play, because that's what you come to expect at the top of the top, and that's what we've come to expect from the Hounds. The team they're going up against are the Athenian Sages. And this is a team, admittedly, beginning of the year, not a great start. And I think even afterward, after Masters blow up, after the first Masters blow up, come in, start to piece things together, get a little higher in the standings, come into Phase 3, get second seed in the standings, and so far Shelley have looked really good as a team, as individuals as well. Player we're looking to step up, though, has to be Shortfuse, right? If you're highlighting Oathhh, you got to look in the jungle, since it's been a very high-pressure matchup for the Hounds in the jungle. I think Shortfuse right now is the one that has to be able to keep up, because otherwise the only players that we've seen giving that same level of discussion this LAN so far has been Dame. Otherwise, we've been talking a lot about carries and a lot about Shortfuse in the last few days. I think that Shortfuse has it in him to make this one interesting.
Yeah, and I think Shortfuse's god pool is also very interesting because, you know, we just discussed with Oathhh was playing a lot of the Susanoo and the Lancelot, sometimes Erlong Shen when those things are banned, but Shortfuse, very different, has been looking to try and grab the Thor whenever possible. If the Thor is open, Shortfuse is looking towards it, but if not, you know, can go towards those rats. I guess the Robin in this case could also be decent in certain matchups. Different contested god picks, I would say, or I guess uncontested god picks between these two junglers. They both still have that hard carry potential, like you would expect from pretty much any jungler in this circuit. When given a small lead, they can absolutely pop off. But I've been very impressed with how Shortfuse has been able to play throughout this entire tournament. Just seems like there are a few characters that you can just not give to this man because he will absolutely pop off on. And when he's popping off, of course, the rest of the team's looking pretty good too.
Makes it a much more interesting dynamic when you know that picks and bans probably not going to be oriented around the junglers at all, but how impactful they're going to be. I mean, we're talking first picks in some of these cases, since Sages are going to be first pick in picks and bans for game 1. Thor comes to my mind. Shortfuse has been loving that pick and been playing it really well. Also, he's been winning a lot. And so as a god, feels really solid. As a pick, feels really solid. It just depends on how the hands want to tackle. The hounds want to tackle their bans when we get into picks and bans for game number 1. I think a lot of this Trelly is going to be hound-centric, right? I mean, it's very difficult to get into a game and not talk about them when they play as well as they do. We'll find out, though, in picks and bans for game number 1. How exactly they want to try and deal with the Sages here. Renjaru, Jangaru, even though not mentioned alongside Shortfuse, have to be talked about. I think Priv as well. Priv does not play with the standard, I would say, support pool.
Yep.
And has been playing some very specific gods, but I think the Privative's Athena might just be one of the best ones out there. If you can pick that up, it could be feeling pretty solid. We were wondering about how you might want to try and handle Oathhh. They do ban out the Susanoo. The Yemoja joins that, as well as the Thor itself. So the Sages not looking for the Thor. The other side's the Morgan, Cthulhu, and the Nike that has been banned away by the Hounds.
Blades of light.
And it's Ishtar. I mean, not an uncommon first pick, Trelly. So far this weekend, Ishtar has been doing pretty well, 67% win rate, but realistically, a lot of first picks for this god.
Yeah, maybe the call was they didn't want to get Thor to give up Ishtar, so they decided, we'll just ban the Thor, force the Hounds into making a decision. It looks like did not want to deal with the Nike, so able to grab the Ishtar. That does, however, give the Hounds the Ymir, a pick that has been so dominant in that duo lane and also just annoying, right? It's very hard to actually get a kill onto Ymir in the early. But with that being said, you got to assume the Sages are looking for that Athena in this slot. Priv has been going towards the Maui as well, but given the option, I would assume the Athena is higher on the priority, and the Ratatoskr as well. Shortfuse did have a fantastic performance on that pick, so it looks like once they get off to an early start, has a pretty good matchup into the Vulcan, so they're going to grab that one pretty much immediately.
I mean, you want to talk about a potential land meta god, I think Rat has to be on that list. With Ymir and Vulcan, two gods that have trouble getting past walls, one of them really good at putting up walls, but Odin gets locked in, and I'm going to be honest with you, Trelly, after Uzi got knocked out, I didn't know that we'd be seeing any more Odin.
I didn't expect to,
and you don't seem happy about it.
I'm not disappointed. I'm just questioning.
You're not
exactly.
mad. You're just disappointed.
Yeah.
That's how that normally goes.
Yeah. It's just a little questionable because even though you got some great opportunities to find cages, Phantom Shell and Attack Speed are two things that Odin's Cage don't really want to deal with. He hasn't been in the meta for quite some time for a reason, but it looks like the Sages just want to try and play through
Lancelot.
that cage, right? If they can get the cage, if they can focus out and just say, hey, we're fighting when we have this Ring of Spears up, and if we have it, we should be winning the fight, then that's their plan. They do, however, leave open that Lancelot, a pick that Oathhh has been absolutely loving. And I felt like he was probably going to bring it out, and because the Athena got banned in that slot, Maui is still going to go through there for Priv.
The Athena, the Ares banned out, the Awelish, and Ducky's tier specifically. I will have to give some credit over there. We've talked a lot about the left side of the Hounds, pretty much from jungle over, and ignored solo lane a lot. Ducky on this tier has been a very phenomenal pick, and gotten a lot of early game leads for them. They're going to round it out with an Amaterasu. And so that's something that Ducky, again, maybe hasn't been forced onto as much, but is still going to be capable of that with the Lancelot. Is going to feel like a really good, maybe aggressive right side of the map. You had mentioned the Maui, but also a Scylla locked in for the Sages. So really, it's just the Odin on their composition that seems outlandish. But it is outlandish enough that it's throwing some question marks. We'll see if the Sages can do what no other team has and take down the Hounds. Will the Hounds continue their onslaught with J-Mac and Mifflin?
Yeah, it's been a very long run for the Eldritch Hounds as they've gone 15-0 in the regular season and then have gone undefeated so far in this event against their SCC counterparts. We'll see if the Athenian Sages can be the first SCC team to put a blemish on the Hounds record. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug. Bring you game number 1 of our qualification round. The winner of this set, Miff, they're going to the SWC group stage. Loser of this one, they have to wait a little bit longer, take on the Shabalba Storm in the next set to see who would be the second team to make it there. And I kind of want to dial in on this Odin. It's something that was brought up as some concern on the desk by Trelly. Don't really see this Odin unless it's like Uzi kind of picking this god up. How do you feel about the Odins to the composition that the Hounds have?
Well, into this composition in particular, I think Odin is generally fine. Phantom Shell seems to be the only dedicated answer the Eldritch Hounds could come up with. Whether or not the Odin's going to be able to actually thrive enough to rotate into these team fights, have that impact be known, to be determined, because I'm just not a fan of Odin's laning phase. I'm not a fan of Odin's mid game. So a lot of these soul laners, when they rotate out around level 12, level 14, they're bringing a lot of damage or disruption into the backline. Odin brings a cage, and if that cage isn't finding value, Odin likely won't either. So very high execution in decision making. Maybe not the most mechanically demanding pick on the planet, but certainly one where you got to choose your spots properly.
Well, we'll definitely get the upper hand over the Amaterasu early in the laning phase, but imagine once that Golden Blade is picked up, Ducky should have no problem clearing up against the Odin. 2v2 in mid is favoring the Eldritch Hounds, though. Crimson and Oathhh able to bully Jangaru and Shortfuse back. And we saw what Dame was capable of on this Ratatoskr in our previous set, going a 12-2 performance in the first game and then picking up quite a few in the second game as well. See if Shortfuse can hold to that same level, but it really feels like this Lancelot has kind of bounced in and out of the meta. It's something that Oathhh has been going to a little bit this weekend, something that he's been doing a whole lot of winning on.
Yeah, and Lancelot is in such a good spot right now in Smite, in that there is a golden time for Lancelot, generally around like level 14, 3 items into your build, where all of a sudden you have one-shot potential. Your entire combo, if you line it up properly, is going to kill literally anybody on the map. So Oathhh likely aiming for that portion, but still certainly has a bit of an advantage over Ratatoskr in the early game as well. Rat needs that acorn finished before he's really able to fight. Also would really like to get that second item. Generally it's going to be Jotuns or something in that mace tree. Then you can match presence in damage. Global presence, though, might make it difficult for Oathhh to follow him.
Oathhh will double dash away, stunned by Dishonored, silenced by Ducky. Oathhh low, doesn't get the knockback, but gets onto the horse just in time. And he'll actually throw the horse right back out, but unfortunately for Ducky and Oathhh, they're not going to be healthy enough to contest this blue buff that's been stolen away by the Sages.
Easy steal, just poke Oathhh out, make sure he can't stick around. And a 2v1 will always go your way around the blue. Ducky wisely decides not to step up into this one. We will see an inflection point in the soul lane very shortly, especially if Ducky is moving in towards that Golden Blade, where he should just have a good deal of pressure over this Odin. You're going to have the self-sustain from Amaterasu that will match some of that HP shielding that Odin gets from the Raven shot as well. So for now, a really good opportunity for the Sages to play through that lane. But on first back, or maybe second back, depending on where Ducky's sitting in his gold, could make it a bit more difficult. So good on the Sages recognizing that that was an opportunity to look for an invade, because they will be slim to none in the future.
Yeah, Ducky playing very conservative on his mana right now because he doesn't have that blue buff, but does have the Death's Toll to resustain some of that. Compared to the other side with this Warrior's Axe and into a tier 1 Cudgel. I wonder where Dishonored's going to go with this build, whether that be the Sledge that we've kind of been seeing make a return, maybe the Blackthorn Hammer to kind of pop its way in. Is there any, maybe kind of one that you see would be a better fit for this Odin?
Well, the only data I have on Odin is Uzi. He plays it nonstop, and I've seen him go towards Blackthorn pretty consistently. That passive just helps Odin out a whole lot when you're so reliant on your ultimate getting any form of CDR to give you an advantage in that regard. Really important as well. And it's not as if the stat stick is poor either. Blackthorn giving over a pretty large infusion of HP means that you should be able to hang out in lane pretty reliably. But between the two, if you go Sledge, more survivability. If you go Blackthorn, more playmaking potential.
We'll see.
Oh, it's Runeforged. Okay.
Wow, it's neither of those. Dishonored said he wants to kind of break the mold on this one. So Runeforged with the Warrior's Axe up against what will be Golden Blade for Ducky as he's able to go back to base and pick that one up. And both soul laners teleport right back into the lane. So far, with no kills happening across the map, we don't see any real gold lead just yet. Ducky actually ults to secure his blue buff and will push Dishonored out, so at least lucky for Ducky, able to hold on to his buff this time around. Shortfuse nowhere to really be seen at that time, but now Shortfuse shows up, goes into the tree. Ducky without an ultimate, stuck inside the cage. This should be A first blood for the Athenian Sages. They drop the solo laner.
Easy rotation. Ducky with no ultimate available means he's got no way to answer Shortfuse's ultimate. Good allocation of that aggression. Not much to gain on this side of the map, though. Shortfuse will have to contend himself with just the kill.
Wow.
And did he steal that
Yeah.
away? Okay, all right. I take back what I was literally in the process of saying. Plenty on the map to take if you can walk up on a Greater Scorpion like that as well. Shortfuse coming up big for his team. Kill allocation, maybe not the best. You'd much prefer your jungler get that first blood for himself, as he's got impact on a bit more of the map than your soul laner. But regardless, any start like that up against the Eldritch Hounds, a team that have been so dominant in the early game throughout the regular phase, as well as this tournament, is a phenomenal step to take. Keep your eyes on the Sages. This could open up the door for Dishonored to start rotating out towards these team fights a little bit more consistently. Might be difficult for him to find the cages he's looking for, though, until he ticks over to level 12. Likely will be Blink in that second slot. Until then, a bit mitigated in his gap close potential, but still certainly has great targets for it. A cage on Crimson would likely just kill Crimson.
A singular shell picked up for both supports as well. One to deal with Quigs on the side of the Eldritch Hounds for Privative, and the opposite. One for Quig to deal with Privatives. Whenever that, or no, I'm sorry, to deal with Dishonored's cage whenever those eventually do drop during the team fights. I wonder if we'll see more shells picked up by either like Crimson or Dude Man Bro to see if they need a little bit of extra assist to break out of these Odin cages. That will be, at least for once level 12s come through before we have a chance to see that. Quig by himself going to go ahead and seal away a couple of offerings while Privative was in the middle of 3. But it feels like trying to slow down Ducky is the name of the call for the Athenian Sages. It's a double dunk in. Shortfuse once again shows up to the right side of the map, and once more Ducky falls.
Yeah, Ducky probably wishing he'd itemized a bit more towards defense in the early this time around. That combo is just not something Amaterasu has an answer for, not until she gets involved in those team fights and has Quig with the Phantom Shell nearby. So again, once more, an easy lineup. Oh, lots of damage here.
Wow, I didn't think the Joust would have enough to kill, but he may drop down. No, Aegis!
Okay.
Available for Oathhh in the first relic slot and immunes the damage from Dishonored. So Oathhh puts the Eldritch Hounds on the board with a turnaround kill and a Shortfuse.
And this is something Oath's been doing all weekend. Just go ahead onto the Lancelot, grab Aegis in that first slot. Don't necessarily need Blink because of how fast Lancelot is just inherently in the kit. Gap close from the ultimate is Privative. He might be able to grab Crim here.
He does drop the ult. Slammed down by Priv. Landfall cuts off the path. Crimson jukes out the Yama Monster. Jukes out the swords from Renjaru. He's still alive for only a moment later. But now Oathhh has shown in. Dash 1. Now stopped by the Sikkim. Dash 2 is good. Double freeze from Quig, and Renjaru will drop down now. A kill for the support of the Eldritch Hounds and 2 for the team.
Crimson lived 6 seconds longer than he should have, and that gives time for Oathhh to rotate in towards this team fight. Gives time for the Hounds to regroup as well. Red buff invade could look good here. DMB and Oathhh not interested, just Quig on his own, and Quig can't get a whole lot done on his own. Dishonored TP's in. Eldritch Hounds on the wrong side of the map.
Oathhh run away on the horse, actually jumps over the stun from Shortfuse. Quig should go down in the middle of the Odin cage. A lot of extra HP, and unfortunate for him, does he end up getting the Mail of Renewal proc while still inside of the cage, so not going to get the extra HP. The Athenian Sages put up their 4th kill.
Ducky does not match rotation. Instead, close up a bit of that level lead that Dishonored had established for himself. This could be great for Ducky here. Dishonored is really starting to pull ahead in that lane, and having made a rotation using his teleport to the left side for just a kill on the support might not exactly be valuable, especially with supports as close as they are. Essentially, all that comes of that is Quig doesn't pull ahead and Dishonored loses his lead. I think the lead in solo might have been a bit more valuable.
Experience only 1,000 gold, even less than that, in favor of the Athenian Sages. Still a small lead, but the Hounds have proven that this is a team that you have to be 10,000 plus gold up over to maybe stand a chance in the late game, and this is a team that will still fight you like they're 5,000 gold ahead when they're the ones who are in fact 5,000 gold down. They've been doing everything they could on the Sage to try and slow down Ducky, but I think you're right to highlight the rotation over there. Ducky able to catch back up. Oathhh as well has been one of the targets of Shortfuse and Dishonored. And Oathhh Gonna get some good poking on Jangaru. Oathhh will ultimate away from Shortfuse. Stun off the mark, and the turnaround slow from the dismount will force Shortfuse and Jangaru out.
Perfect timing from that grand joust. Privative finds Sikkim on the mark, but a wall clean from Quig should confirm the disengage. Love the idea from Priv there. Clearly has timer on Crimson's bead. Said, we've got 20 seconds as a window to make our play. Had Jangaru held onto the ultimate instead of trying to launch it Oathh's way, maybe would have found the kill there. Instead, Crimson able to reset himself, go back to stacking, and right back to comfortable at that. This is some aggressive positioning, considering maybe a Gold Fury pool here. Crimson's got the DPS. Confirmation not quite there without Earthshaker, but with a numbers advantage, you don't hate it.
Privative dashes in to the fight, drops down the fish, but too little too late. The Eldritch Hounds will take the Gold Fury and take their first lead of the game. 200 gold, nothing really all that much now, but kind of answering back to what the Athenian Sages have been doing. All this aggression to the right, the Hounds answer on the left, but maybe an answer back to Quig, dragged back in by the hook and dropped down. Dishonored once again has rotated over. Two-man bro beats and breaks down the cage, jumps over to the trebuchet for backup, but there is none to be had. It is 2 picks for the Athenian Sages, but a Gold Fury in what will be a Pyromancer for the Hounds.
So here's the thing about these rotations from Dishonored. You're not getting a whole lot off of them. Previous fight just wasn't in a position to look at Gold Fury. This time around, TP's in post Gold Fury. Eldritch Hounds may have lost a couple of their lives, but a value trade 100% in their favor, taking both neutral objectives on the map. Ducky doesn't miss out on any farm either. The Athenian Sages, they're getting aggressive. They're finding their kills, but the opportunities and the timing of them, really costly. A tier 1 tower on left could go a long way, but this early in the game, the Hounds, not that it's in DMB's playbook, but if he so chose, could just go ahead and zone him at the tier 2 tower here. You've essentially got 3.5 minutes where the Eldritch Hounds could just rest on their laurels, do nothing on the map. Athenian Sages have got a slight lead, though. Maybe they could push it if they want to start moving in towards the remaining tier 1 towers on the map. In particular, the CC combo in mid from Jangaru, Shortfuse together. Very dangerous for Vulcan, with beads and Aegis available. And with the projected safe play from the Hounds, it'd be hard to come by that opportunity.
Yeah, it really feels like the Sages have now shifted their attention. It was all early focusing Ducky, keeping this Amaterasu down, but then Dishonored has now made 2 rotations away from Ducky, so that's all caught up. So it seems that, okay, cool, we got our first couple kills on Ducky, we got a kill on Oathhh. Let's prioritize the left side of the map, and that's worked out in getting kills there. That's where half of the Sages' kills have come from, but haven't really done anything to truly shut down the Hounds just yet. I mean, even with the kill lead for the Sages, even with a slight gold lead for the Sages, momentum still feels like it's completely in the wheelhouse of the Eldritch Hounds. I mean, even with the 2 kills that came earlier, is the Hounds who'd made the proactive play to pull the Gold Fury, to pull the Pyromancer, take both of those. Here's a good start for the Sages to keep shutting them down. Dude, man, will drop the ultimate, turn Shortfuse into a pig, but Shortfuse has got plenty of movement speed to keep up with it, and even the minion wave isn't enough. Quig will pop the shell and walk through, gets a decent heal back through it all, but yanked back in with the island. The freeze will not do anything. Dishonored picks up another, but Earthshaker does not find anything this time around. Oathhh dismounted from the horse instantly. We'll have to grand joust out. Does Jangaru have the blind shot? No, he will not. Oathhh able to dash one time away, but Dishonored will not continue the chase.
Crimson caught in his tower as well, and for the first time, Ducky matches rotations. But once more, the Athenian Sages on a 1-team fight. Speaking of the aggressive, proactive play from the Hounds, it's a 1-team fight on their own purple buff. The Hounds, and Quig in particular, has decided that will be his grave 3 times in a row. But it just has not amounted to much. Another rotation from Dishonored where you get the kills, but nothing to be had afterward. Jangaru dash forward. This should be it.
Well, nope. Aegis there for Crim. That'll immune the crush. Crimson doesn't have ultimate, so instead we'll just walk back up to clear the wave with his support, but backing in the lane, Shortfuse shows up. The spin, not quite enough, and the wall accidentally by Quig will instead block off the escape for Crimson. It's now 9 kills on the board for the Sages, and 4 of those at the hand of Shortfuse.
Yeah, Crim tried to juke the dart from Shortfuse. Had he just kept walking forward, though, I think Quig has the peel with that wall. Unfortunate circumstance. I don't think it really changes the outcome of that small trade either. Crimson just a bit over-aggressive, sticks around a bit too long, falls to the Zatman credo, which is one more wave couldn't possibly hurt me. Crimson, in the grayscale for the next 10 seconds, can think on whether or not that holds true. Game state as it is, though, the Eldritch Hounds continue dying, but the gold lead continues to eke back in their favor as well, just farming really, really well on map. The major winner for the Athenian Sages as of now are in support and jungle, both nursing a 2-level lead. Means that any fight that happens on map should likely favor the Sages. Those are your 2 roamers. But regardless, it's the Eldritch Hounds. If we had a heat map of where they played this game, it's all on the Athenian Sages side of the map. And with Gold Fury up, they're first on the scene.
Shortfuse has ult. So does Renjaru, but Shortfuse chunked out for 30% of his health by Oathhh in an instant. And Primal Fury giving up. No one for the Sages will step forward to stop this one, so it's yet another neutral objective going the way of the Eldritch Hounds. And Ducky has even been able to come back from the trenches earlier on and nurse himself up a 1-level lead over Dishonored. We'll go back to base and spend up some of that 3,000 plus gold that he had in pocket. It's a lot that Ducky's able to grab from this one. Gets a full Shogun's Kusari and starts up in the Ancient Blade tree as well.
So, a bit of defense finally. Attack speed for his teammates. Only really DMB benefiting from the passive of that Shoguns, but still certainly will be able to have his stamp known in the team fight. The team fight that appears to be starting closer to him. Athenian Sages on the way in, but too little, too late. Eldritch Hounds take the Pyromancer for themselves with 0 fight back in. The Sages, real good in these 5-on-5s, real good at finding these picks. But it's the Eldritch Hounds that have just taken everything on the map. Now finally the Sages grouping up around an objective. Tier 1 tower in mid could just go their way easily.
Oh no, freeze on the Privative. The Odin cage comes through, but the Tier 1 tower will drop down thanks to the might of the Trebuchet, but out to the backline. Jangaru, how far can the Scylla run? The Tier 1 tower seems to be just enough, but Dishonored caught on the backline. Landfall will grab 1, but Jangaru still goes down. Shortfuse running as fast as he can. Does take out Dude Man on the escape. It is a 1-for-1 trade, but a Tier 1 tower for the Sages.
Man, and keep your eyes on the relics from both of these teams. Seems like the Athenian Sages had to fight a bit harder because ErupTCrimson holds on to Beads and Aegis in that entire fight. Oathhh, being the spearhead frontline that he was, just created so much space for this Vulcan to do whatever he wanted. Fortunately for the Sages, Privative able to turn it around a bit. A phenomenal landfall onto DMB is the only thing that keeps that from being a cataclysmic team fight on the back end of that Tier 1 tower siege. So it's 1-for-1 plus tower to the Sages. But somehow, some way, it's the Hounds who just continue to grow that lead. They grabbed mid camps on the way out, I guess. That's got to be it.
How is it possible that the Sages are the ones who take a tower and, that nets you 500 gold right there. But it's the Hounds who are 400 plus in the lead from there. Something about the farm game, man. I don't know what the Hounds are doing, but they're doing it well. And now Oathhh still 2 levels down. Level 16 on the Lancelot versus 18 from Shortfuse. The disparity between the supports has closed up a little bit. Only 1 level there, but now Crimson pulling ahead in XP. Tips over to 17 before Jangaru does, and Ducky's still his 1 level up as well. So we know where the XP is being allocated to even out as much as it has. And in that last little team fight, I mean, we ended with a 1-for-1 trade, but as you put it perfectly, Crimson under 0 threat during that fight.
And still under 0 threat as he maintains both of those relics. We're about a minute out from the Eldritch Hounds from being able to fight at full strength. Those beads essentially synced up on timer. DMB wishing he had his. A Shortfuse catches him rotating through the jungle alone. An easy pickup with DMB not having access to either of his defensive relics. So a pick like that, 19 minutes in, as quick as it was, as clean as it was too. I'd really like to see the Sages put some pressure towards that fire. You're still slightly behind, but not so much so that you're really concerned about it. A 5 versus 4 would really favor the Sages, but instead, just hovering in the jungle. Maybe an opportunity to look at the tier 2 on left, but even there, playing trepidatiously. DMB goes down, and the only thing the Athenian Sages gain from it is 40 seconds where DMB isn't farming.
Almost kind of feels like the Hounds are putting bounties on their own players. Like, all right, cool. Well, if this guy dies, well, you know, we get a couple extra 100 gold to our pockets. It feels like every single time that
my wave now, chump.
Every time a Hounds player dies, they're the ones who gain more gold from it than the Sages do. I'm not sure what's going on with the Eldritch Hounds this game, but objectives, the name of the game for them. Only 3 kills, but every Fury and every Pyromancer so far.
It's because the Sages aren't pushing their advantage state. They find a pick, and it's nice, we've done it. But when the Eldritch Hounds find opportunities, it's nice, give me your red buff, your bat camps, oracles, neutral farm, greater scorpions, pyromancers, gold furies. And that's kept them afloat in a game where if you were just looking at the kill department, it looks like the Athenian Sages are trouncing the Hounds by degrees even. Just 11-3 across the top. This gold lead, criminal that the Eldritch Hounds have held onto it, even if it is paltry. Now with the Fury back up, could be a situation where the Hounds can separate themselves a bit more, or if the Athenian Sages can keep these team fight wins rolling, finally somewhere they could go to push their lead.
Oni Fury up, and there are a lot of pings on this map from both these squads to start grouping up around it. A full 5v5. It'd be our second 5-on-5 team fight. Last time, it went 1-for-1 between the teams, and the Sages were even able to get a tier 1 tower out of it. But now, the prize is an Oni Fury, some enhanced minions. Start trying to push down some of these waves. The Eldritch Hounds have only been able to take a single tower of their own, one in solo lane dropped by Ducky earlier on. But for now, neither team going to commit to a pull. Instead, it's back to the farm game. Shortfuse has even left that side of the map.
Yeah, well, Shortfuse with a global presence should be able to get involved in that fight if it were to happen. Eldritch Hounds may have thought that Oni Fury a bit too risky. Pyromancer much easier to take down. General response in situations like that is to go ahead and pull the Fury. Athenian Sages have read the classic Smite playbook and do exactly that. Fury going quickly. Eldritch Hounds not so concerned about it. We'll go ahead and let that one fall down. So small win to the Sages once more. A win that the Hounds had essentially decided to let go. Now you have to contend with these enhanced minion waves all the way across the map. But an interesting decision from Dishonored on the tail end, actually teleporting into his own tier 2 tower. Means that for the next couple of minutes, won't have access to that heroic teleport. I'm keeping my eyes on the Hounds. They've been keeping me guessing for the last couple of moments. I don't imagine we see them push into this tier 2, or tier 1 rather, on left. But I'm keeping my eyes on Ducky, who's finally locked eyes with Renjaru, forces him back into the tier 2 tower. Creating a bit of space, get a vision on map. Now's the time. That should be a free tower now for the Hounds, so long as the Sages don't match rotations. An inverse of what we had seen earlier. Ducky out of the lane. Dishonored sticking around, trying to catch up. Neither one of these teams so significant an advantage that they can feel confident in their ability to pull the fire. But some power spikes certainly hit. Oathhh now with the sledge should be able to stick around in these team fights a bit more consistently. Heartseeker from Shortfuse means that that play we had just seen up against DMB is going to be a bit easier. That burst potential now from Rat, so much higher. Otherwise, Jangaru finished up that Ob Shard, so the tanks of the Eldritch Hounds going to struggle a bit more. And I use the word tank loosely in situations like this. It's really one dedicated defense item for Ducky, and Quig, being a support player, just isn't allowed to have items, so starting to work on his 4th. Spirit Robe will help out a bit, but Ob Shard should cut that efficacy.
It's gone from Oathhh. Crush, not gonna find anything this time. Wall will not block much, but the freeze onto Priv is good, and he will drop thanks to the help of the Earthshaker from Crimson that did land that time around. 1 kill for the Eldritch Hounds in the fight, an immediate turn to the Fire Giant with Priv gone. The ranged initiation from the Athenian Sages is gone. Dishonored's the only one up here right now. Renjaru and Shortfuse so far back. Dishonored baited into the fight, and before he can even de-transform, has fallen to Dude Man Pro and the Hounds.
Shortfuse goes up, says surely there's a low HP target, just incorrect, Will. Aim for Crimson in the back, forces the Aegis, but it's the Hounds with the fire.
Grab fire and maybe even Shortfuse as well. The slow miss, but the double dash is good, and the cone shot after. Oathhh has found his second of the game. Shortfuse now shut down. Stun onto Crimson. The range auto's not quite enough damage to take down the mid laner. Renjaru just a sliver of HP away from taking a Fire Giant off of one, but the Eldritch Hounds, all 5 lived through with the buff.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Hounds found their one pick on the Priv, went to Fire Giant, forced a fight, took out Dishonored, took the fire. It's just these small opportunities that are going to separate this game. And even now, with Shortfuse and Dishonored still dead, Hounds don't say, oh, we won the team fight, we got a tower, we got a fire, let's go back and spend it. Yo, we still have the advantage. Keep it rolling. Take down the tier 1 and the tier 2. Potentially even some more. Could go for this tier 2 on left. Minion wave a bit far off. Means that if the Hounds don't want to deal with these backdoor protections, they'll have to grab that one first. I think this Sages should be in a position now where they can defend the tier 2 tower. At least a soft defense to slow down the Hounds as they start to maneuver their way through the map. Hounds realizing the Athenian Sages now at full strength will not just roll over, decide to disengage. So now we get to evaluate what the Eldritch Hounds base siege starts to look like. And spoiler alert, it's pretty good. Any base siege that incorporates Ymir just has so much value in that you can cut down this already small play space in a tier 2, in a Phoenix, essentially in half with that wall, controlling where the Athenian Sages are allowed to funnel their aggression. And in situations like that, that means Oathhh has got an easier time lining up his own ultimate, or Ducky can initiate a bit easier, separate that team fight. Crimson just doesn't have to think about half of a Phoenix with that Earthshaker. Instead, can aim directly at his opposition. Really like how this could look for the Hounds. Especially now without Dishonored's ultimate. Hey. Phantom Shell doesn't have to be used there. Oathhh just walks himself out.
He is living just fine, no problems for Oathhh. Now tier 2 tower, gone pretty quickly here for the Eldritch Hounds. This dude man bro is nearly full build at this point. Sold a starter to get a Silver Branch bow. And now working towards the Phoenix, pull onto Quig. Freeze will get the bubble off of Priv. Landfall will be immuned out by Quig, but the damage that dude man has done to this Phoenix, stun out only onto Quig, and Earthshaker slams Renjaru's health bar. The Hunter has to back away, and so do the rest of the Sages for the left Phoenix to fall.
Mid Phoenix already takes some damage. Shortfuse tries to defend, drops Oathhh down to half, but it seems the Hounds have got eyes elsewhere. Jangaru forced back to Fountain. The Sages still have access to some of those ultimates. Dishonored finally gets his back. No Phantom Shell for Quig. Could lock him in here.
Oh no, Dishonored gets the ult back, but he can't even de-transform again. I'm a monster. Immuned out this time around. Quig living on the smallest of fractions of health. And Oathhh will dive in the backline with Ducky. Renjaru is gone. 48 seconds till Dishonored is back. And it's only the carries and Priv. Earthshaker will be off the mark this time around. Crimson backfires the wrong way. Beads and Aegis gone from the mid laner, but the Eldritch Hounds still have 5 players, but not healthy enough to stick around with a Scylla standing by.
Fire Giant for 30 seconds. Shortfuse has to play safe here. Major fumble. Credit to the kill for Ducky. The Eldritch Hounds on the way out were gifted another siege.
Priv and Jangaru, the last 2 alive to defend against. Half HP on multiple targets, but Jangaru just can't get to the fight. And the Eldritch Hounds will take game number 1.
A convincing game 1, but in a strange pace. Every single fight in the early goes to the Athenian Sages. A skirmish around the mid-camp, that's them. Fights on their own purple buff, also them. But in that time, the Eldritch Hounds farm up better on map. Ducky able to clean up some of those early game deaths, really pushing himself first to 20 in the game, by the way. Starts out 0-2. Every objective goes to Hounds. The Athenian Sages separated them in the montage department. You got a sick montage in that early game, but as far as goal and experience was concerned, it was Hounds all the way.
The Eldritch Hounds with a weird start in game number 1, falling really far behind in kills, but never far enough behind in that gold and XP. They bring it back and take game number 1. Can they keep up their undefeated streak? We'll find out in game number 2 right after this.
a phenomenal game to watch. Trelly winning it and penalties. No, that's the wrong game. No, a good win from the Hounds, though. And a good win from Argentina. I can be happy about it. We can all be happy about that one. Very fun game to watch, though. And, of course, the Hounds now up 1-0. We'll then get to see what they can do. They're one step away from making it to the SWC group stage, which means one more step from there to make it to the SWC. Of course, a lot of teams that we know are going to the SWC so far are the SPL teams, the Leviathans, your Kings, the Dragons, the Bolts, and of course you can get the jerseys or hoodies that you want from Skulls. As of right now, again, jerseys out there as well as the hoodies and shirts, all of the fantastic merchandise, which if you can buy today, this is the last day for this one, because it's this weekend only, we are offering a shipping option that will allow you to pick up your merchandise at SWC if you are attending. So if you go to shop.hi-rezstudios.com or /SBL or shop.smiteproleague.com, then you can pick up your hoodie, your t-shirt, your jersey, whichever of these beautiful, beautiful things that you want to don on your body. And then you can pick it up live at the World Championship while you're rooting for one of your favorite teams. 4 of them guaranteed going to be there. The other 4 have some work to do, potentially having to fight against the Hounds if they end up winning game number 2 and making it to the group stage. That, Trelly, is going to be in a couple of weeks. Right now, we can focus in on what matters, which is game number 1 of that set. And as Mifflin had said it, a little weird pacing to it, but at the end of the day, it's still a win for the Hounds.
Right.
And being one away from tipping over towards groups has to give them a little extra motivation.
It seemed to me like if the Sages were going to knock the Hounds off their rhythm, this game was the game to do it. I mean, they had themselves I think Shortfuse got off to a great start on the Rat, was getting lots of kills, not translating it in to any gold lead, though. And I think that was the issue the casters had with this. I mean, 9-2, and the Hounds are up in gold. That's not really what you want to look at when you are in a position to win the game. You know, it was get a pick. Can we get an invade? No. Get a pick. Can we get an objective? No. And the Hounds, they were always on point. It just seemed like, Ducky on this Amaterasu was able to make some clutch rotations. Crimson on the Vulcan was absolutely popping off so much damage coming out from that pick. And you can't talk about the Hounds without talking about that Lancelot. And Oathhh had themselves a fantastic game, as you would expect. Wasn't dying much in the early, he was just like, oh, you guys are dying, unfortunate, but I'm going to carry you late game. Don't worry. I will be able to run the table with this horse. And that's what he did. Lancelot was very dynamic for the Hounds as the game continued, so.
That might even be an understatement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look, man. It's I'm gonna say this. Highlighting Oathhh in the pregame and then having to talk about Oathhh again because he keeps playing so damn well. I'm getting tired of it, man. 6-3 and 3 for Shortfuse. Not a bad game compared to the other side. 2-0 and 7 Undying on the Lancelot. The only Undying player in the game. Really good start, as you mentioned, for the Sages. Kill-wise, gold-wise, never really in their favor. And that fight back from the Hounds, fight back. That fight on even gold ground into a kill deficit. Ended up looking really good. Ducky there at the very end looking pretty solid as well. And so a lot of players, while it might not be the craziest KDAs you've ever seen on the Hounds, were able to hold on and do exactly what was necessary. Have to give the shout out, probably, because 27,000 damage coming from Crimson, about 9,000 more than what Jangaru was able to put out. Jelly, you have to imagine that helped a pretty good amount.
Yeah, I would say so. I think the Vulcan was doing some big things, and you got to always put pressure onto a Vulcan, because if you don't, he just gets the free cast, and no one likes that, especially in a burst mage meta where there's Vulcans and Scyllas running around. When you get hit with an Earthshaker, a fully charged one, you're going to feel it, and that's sort of what Crimson was able to do this time around. So, like I said, if you were going to knock the Hounds off your rhythm, that was the game to do it. Now the Sages have to say, man, we got all these kills. We could not translate that into these objectives or any meaningful gold invades. Maybe focus more on the farming this time around, because the fights, they look pretty clean from the Sages in the early game.
Yeah, trying to, like you said, translate that into some good farm. That's what they've got to adjust here in game number 2 as we jump into picks and bans. Now, Chelly, Sages stay first pick. Last time Ishtar was the number 1 on the board. I think that, again, we got to see Shortfuse run rampant with some of those kills, 6 and 3. You don't get to a slash line like that without putting your life on the line a couple of times. And so playing on that Ratatoskr may be another option for them to go back to. The Hounds so far, not changing too much. Susano gets banned by the Sages again. Ymir has now joined that, so they're not letting that one over. And the Vulcan, so changes from the Sages to try and balance out the things that led to a lead. Otherwise, Cthulhu, Nike, the Morrigan,
Wow.
and the Ishtar locked in once again here by the Sages. You seem surprised.
I thought that would be Thor. I mean, I know Ishtar
yeah,
is
he's
so
up.
good, but in this case, I thought the Sages would have loved to grab Short. I guess in this case, if you lose Thor, you just grab Rat. But is that a worthwhile trade when you're also giving up Yemoja is the question. The Hounds have the option. Do they want to take that Thor for themselves? I know it's a pick that Oathh can go to, but I don't think it's his favorite. I don't think it's the top-tier jungler that he loves to go. But it looks like they're going to hover it at the very least. And they are going to lock it and say, sorry, Shortfuse, you don't get this one. And I guess the Sages have to say, was it the Ishtar or the Thor? In this case, they wanted that Ishtar. They wanted that extra presence in the duo lane, and they wanted some more pressure.
And we always talk about this when you're your first pick, first ban, the capabilities. In this case, Vulcan and Ymir are also top bans. Maybe not this weekend, but over the last few weeks, they are bans that you're used to seeing. But you still let two really big top picks through on the other side, maybe even bigger top picks through on the other side with the Yemoja and the Thor. So a good lock-in for the top two here.
Wow.
For the Hounds on the other side, Cernunnos. And I'll admit, even though we've seen it find some success, the Jormungandr still catches me off guard every time I see it.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a pick that Dishonored just had in the back pocket and maybe has been running scrims on because we've seen a couple bans towards it and no one's really been piloting it too much. I think we saw it like once or twice so far. But when you need a lot of magic damage and you're going to go double hunters, that seems to be what the Sages are leaning towards. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw another Guardian locked in just to help with that magical damage, or even a mage in the jungle, but doesn't really feel like something Shortfuse wants to go to. After the second wave of bans, the Bellona is going to do exactly what you want towards a double hunter composition. Going to stop some of those auto attacks, be annoying, get to the backline, that sort of thing.
We've been talking a lot about the ROM over the last couple of days. ROM, because of the high precedence that we've seen and high performance that we've seen from some of these other gods. So much so that I almost forgot about the Cupid. I feel like I've been mentioning him, but we haven't been seeing him too much. After the Ishtar, after the Kern, usually where people go. That is the option here for the Hounds. Pele gets locked in there. And a Cabrakan, a different frontline look from the Sages, Trelly, than what we've been used to over the last couple of weeks of meta play.
I'm seeing a Janus.
Yeah, that's
I guess I can talk about the Cabrakan in the meantime.
You want to talk about all the other mages? We can go. There's a long time. We can fill some space with the other mages that could be locked in better than you.
Thoth, Merlin, Vulcan, and the Morgan are off the table. But I can still think of a couple more mages I would rather see than the Janus at this point. Really fun character. Don't get me wrong. Lots of burst damage, but isn't always the best option when you're going for consistent damage. If your snipes are hitting, more power to you. And since Crimson has been looking clean throughout this entirety of this tournament, I'm down. Feed it to him. I want to see big snipes, though. I don't want to see just the Janus that's hiding, hitting unstable vortexes, and never join the fight. I want to see cross the map bangers from this Janus.
Dude, cross map, do you care if it's shotgun blasted as well?
Oh, shotgun blast is fine.
As long as he's hitting his ults.
Yes, 100%.
That's all that matters. Honestly, sometimes that's how we've seen him win. If Janus hits ults, equal win. If not, that's a bad play for him. Then the Hounds are one game away from the SWC group stages. Let's find out if they can do it with JMac and Myth.
Will the Eldritch Hounds be your first North American team to make it to the SWC group stages for the SCC, or will the Athenian Sages put that on halt and take us to a game number 3? It's all going to start, though, in game 2. It's JMac, Mifflin, and Doug to bring you game number 2. And while the Janus is cool and hype, and we've seen ErupTCrimson go to a lot, I kind of want to dial in on these weirder picks that Dishonored's been going. The Odin in game 1 started off great, but late game didn't really get a whole lot of value from the cages. Now we're seeing this Jormungandr, which really nobody is kind of playing right now, and maybe for a reason, doesn't feel like Jormungandr's that solid of a pick right now, Miff.
You know, I was of like mind, and I stated my opinion a couple days ago when we saw him consistently banned in the first couple sets of this event. And my Twitter inbox was flooded by Jormungandr believers and fans. So apparently, if I'm understanding this correct, full damage Jormungandr has been A, dominating the ranked scene recently, and B, very strong in the SCC scrim. So damage output, the name of the game for Dishonored this time around. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just very similar to the standard Hades build. Just get your damage, dive that backline. World Serpent does immense damage. The mage items incredibly strong as of now. Crimson, you missed the wall, bud.
Yeah, missed the wall. It might be dropping because of it. Shortfuse takes him down. First blood, much faster this time but still to the Athenian Sages.
That has got to be a mental crusher, right? You're already playing an off-meta pick. Hogs there. You're already playing an off-meta pick, and then you do his bread and butter, which is I walk through walls. Janus is the god of walks through walls. My man couldn't figure out how to walk through a wall right there.
Walks through the floor.
Drops it on the ground. I mean, he did his damage to Shortfuse, I suppose, but probably not an ideal situation. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities this game to rectify that, get some practice in. But falling this early is costly, so long as Shortfuse makes it out alive, and he does, narrowly. That portal was well placed, but the blink just a bit faster. Even in just finding the blink off of Shortfuse, though, does create some safety for the rest of your team. Would have liked it in mid, though. Crimson just getting bullied.
Down 2 levels to Jangaru early on. And even talking, something we haven't seen yet for North America, Myth, is the double hunter composition. That was something we saw kind of 50-50 over in the European SCC, but over here in NA, it's been traditional mage plus hunter. Now we're seeing what Jangaru can do on the Ishtar, Cernunnos for Renjaru this time around. And having this Cabrakan as your assumedly only real front line, considering we've been, at least what you've been hearing behind the scenes in the rumblings, is that this Jormungandr not really going to be a tanky factor, just going to be acting as an extra diver for this squad.
Yeah, I am surprised, though, that it isn't just like Gilded Arrow in first slot. The auto attack stack from Jormungandr is incredibly powerful, really helps out some of that damage output in the mid game as well. Instead, Tainted Steel deals with the sustain from Quig and DMB, gives you a little bit of protections if you are going to go down the entire damage tree as well. Shortfuse wanted Crim, but a phenomenal body block from Oathhh makes sure Crim's able to work his way out of there. Out of the fire, or out of the pan into the fire, though, I should say, as he walks back to mid and has Jangaru just posted up on his tower line. Once Oathhh ticks over to level 5, it'll be a bit more difficult for Jangaru to make this exact play. Ishtar does have decent counterplay, though, to Anvil of Dawn. Just drop your own ultimate, stun on landing. The combo doesn't necessarily work for Oathhh in those situations. And even in the ideal, let's say Jangaru doesn't have ultimate, doesn't have beads either. Janus follow-up, not super impressive until the latest portion of the game. We'll have to keep our eyes on him.
I'm curious where the rest of Crimson's build will go. For a lot of the Januses, we typically see lots of cooldown in the build, things like Chronos Pendant early on to maximize how many times you can use that Unstable Vortex compared to how much damage you get from it early on in the game. Ultimate's dropped on a Renjaru. He'll eat both the Fields of Love and Curious Beads post-Heart Bomb detonation already. So he'll be out on beads for 2.5 minutes there. Didn't die from that engagement, but might not be so fortunate next time around.
Yeah, I think he was probably just concerned about Heart Bomb stun leading to Riptide with your dash down, so pre-beats that situation just in case Quig had it lined up. Up down from Ducky, and the enemy blue buff is not secured by the Hounds, but what is secured is Shortfuse's ultimate, but maybe not his life. Keep your eyes on Oathhh.
Oathhh dunks down behind the tower.
Wall?
Shortfuse in the middle of both Ducky and Oathhh. Dishonored, unfazed by what's happening. So Oathhh, knowing that Shortfuse is low, will try and go for a speed invade. Met by Jangaru. Hammers out, that's the beads from the stun, but now Ducky has shown back up, but rooted in place by Jangaru, and that's just enough to keep him alive. Ducky, no Eagles rally available, but Quig is here. And a Riptide just to make sure that his team can bail out.
I'm surprised Oathhh wasn't fishing for just the wall hammer combo on Shortfuse. No beads, no ultimate in the kit. Could have been an easy kill there. Instead, tries to grab that speed, saying, look, there's no way this 100 HP Pele is going to walk up to this speed buff. Bad read, though. Junglers will die for their own speeds, or at least attempt to. So maybe a missed opportunity from Oathhh, who spends a whole lot of time in the enemy jungle. Does not get a whole lot of the farm. Fortunately for Shortfuse, everything's still available to him, means that won't even fall behind, having flubbed his aggression on that right-hand side. But significant power spikes have been hit by both junglers, going Crusher in first slot, so auto attacks a bit more quick, damage from abilities a bit more consistent, and a little bit over the edge thanks to that dot damage that it'll apply, as well as the Soul Inners. I wasn't expecting Pythax piece from Dishonored, but a little bit of lifesteal on an already safe pick means that Dishonored will likely be able to stick around in lane for a similar amount of time as Ducky. It's not as if he's matching, you know, Death's Toll plus Scourge, but should help out a bit.
Maybe less of the Hades light style of build and maybe more of like a combination of Cthulhu and Hades in build. Because this is typically an item that we see out of other Soul Lane Guardians, like the Cthulhu specifically. So we'll keep an eye on where the rest of Dishonored's build will go. Will it be this full power Jormungandr? Will we see a little bit more action from Shortfuse? Oathh makes up into the sky with only a sliver of HP. Portal off the mark by Crim. Oathh is debating landing down in the fight, but instead he'll back out of this one. And the World Serpent by Dishonored will not find anybody this time around. It's now left him, at least on the top side of the jungle, but the Eldritch Hounds jungler is able to bail out.
Smart decision-making from Shortfuse there. Just sees that Oathh has used his hammer to secure the camp and says, well, you've just got ult now. There's no other way out for you, and if you hold on to it for even a moment, Dishonored was in stealth and on the way in. So good aggression from him. Had Oathh landed his ultimate, that's just it for Shortfuse. There was no more counterplay with that ultimate, the Volcanic Lightning down. And still no beats pickup, not until level 12. An opportunity again for Oathh to get active. Wall, no good. Hammer, just a close gap.
But the Tremor from Privative, enough to distract 3 of the Eldritch Hounds, even soaked up the damage of the Bramble Blast there. So Renjaru loses out on his beads during the trade. We'll have to sit back a little bit safer on the Cernunnos. That's the only form of CC immunity he has in the kit. Athenian Sages much better this time about capitalizing off their kills, or at least capitalizing off their TKOs. A near 2,000 gold lead already, but Shortfuse may have stepped a little too far forward. Some slight miscommunication there as the hammer wasn't there for the spin, but Ducky shows up with a Scourge to put himself and the Eldritch Hounds on the board.
Yeah, Shortfuse, he's thinking to himself, man, we've been stealing so much farm this game. He looks at the top. He's like, that's where our gold lead's coming from. I need to keep doing it. Gotta choose your spots a bit more wisely than that, though. An easy rotation from a global presence jungler and mid laner means that there's really no way Shortfuse doesn't have to contend with somebody in positions like that. Fortunately for Ducky, it's the kill landing on him, which means that pressure should belong to him as well. Eldritch Hounds keeping themselves afloat, but an inverse of game 1. The Athenian Sages not nearly as far ahead in kills, but maybe one of the largest gold leads they've held all set.
Oathh will throw a ward over the wall for the red, and that's down for a little while as Jangaru actually had just dropped it before. We saw Oathh make that rotation through. Dual lane still pushing far up, even in levels for the two. Will Renjaru slightly ahead of DMB at this point. Shortfuse caught out of position, stun in from Jangaru as he dashes, but a hammer out for Oathh and an ultimate out of ErupTCrimson. Oathh goes back up to the sky. Crimson is low. Oathh cuts off the path for Jangaru, who's trapped in the fields of love. But it's a 1-for-1 trade out. Shortfuse able to walk out of this one. Crimson and DMB half HP. Quig can't get to the Riptide in time. Does make it through.
Whoa.
And a portal from Crimson is enough to bail out the support for now. But he's got to run far. Cannot sit at the tier 2 tower because Shortfuse is standing by, but gets spotted out by DMB. And instead, the jungler will go for the red buff.
And the Sages, rectifying some of the mistakes of the previous game, find a small advantage, push into the enemy jungle, take red, take purple, and potentially the Gold Fury as well. Oathh and Crimson, neither one of them have access to that ultimate. They've got to realize the Athenian Sages are making this play, and will just go ahead and let this one go. The Sages in a very good position once more, off the back of just clean aggression. Shortfuse, W keys. Privative does the same. Double Hunter draft means any fight at this portion of the game likely will favor you. And the Eldritch Hounds struggling to connect with some of those key cooldowns. In particular, Oathh has not impressed so far on this Thor. Wall's not quite on the mark. Hammers haven't been connecting. Ultimate off the mark as well in that last team fight. Given that much space, the Athenian Sages will start to run over you in games like this, and so far have done a good job of it. Desync on neutral objectives and double hunter composition means that if Jangaru finds an opportunity to rotate over towards that Pyromancer, might just be an early double objective to the Sages.
Yeah, 2,300 gold up for the Order side team. The largest lead they've been able to pull up against the Hounds in both of these games so far. Shortfuse will rotate over to Pyro now with Jangaru. Oathh is here. He's got a lot of work to stop from this one. Ducky on the rotation as well. Wall hits Shortfuse. Big damage out of Ducky. And it through space and time will only hit Jangaru, but it opens up a path to get to the back line. Jangaru under fire. Eagles rally good. But the World Serpent has put Oathhh at critical HP. The last tick is not there. The stun doesn't find it. Healing from Quig is keeping Oathhh in this fight. And a Phantom Shell to have to go past his own wall. Oathhh is able to make it out of danger.
Quig eats the Wild Hunt. Renjaru dashes right into the Riptide. Has it canceled out here. Ducky no access to Eagles rally. Should still be able to make it out though. Dishonored, just no mana to play with here. So the Eldritch Hounds finally hit pay dirt thanks to all that aggression. And similar to the rotations of the previous game, instead of Dishonored making it, this time it's Renjaru who does it. DMB just sticks around and says, hey, I was suffering over here. There was a lot of farm I had to make up. Now both sitting at level 10, you find a bit of parity.
And nearly a 1k gold swing back down for the Eldritch Hounds to try and punch back to the Athenian Sages. They found their one pick. They were all able to make it out, only costing them, relic-wise, a Phantom Shell to get out of that fight. You look across the board, it's double blink from Shortfuse and Privative to get to that fight. Dishonored teleported in after the fight was done. So Eldritch Hounds are looking healthy to move in towards the next team fight. Beads still available for every single person, and what started it all, the Pyromancer for the Sages, is now being started up and will likely fall to the Eldritch Hounds unless Dishonored can find a steal with the haze. He will not. It'll be the Eldritch Hounds taking the Pyro.
Now, the Eldritch Hounds, having removed an opportunity for the Athenian Sages to push even further ahead, should be able to slow down this game. It's hard to say who's going to benefit from a slower pace. Like, hypothetical situation if the game stagnated for 10 or so minutes. Eldritch Hounds are playing into a double hunter composition, but with a squishy front line, Privative just now finishing up his Spirit Robe, Dishonored going down that full damage tree, could be decent for the Eldritch Hounds to take it late, give some time to this Janus to finally start itemizing into some of that CDR, some penetration as well. I couldn't say in particular which one of these compositions I'm going to like more in the late game. I think it's completely contingent on Dishonored on this Yorm. Privative dies for the sins of his ADC, gets him caught out, will fall down. Eldritch Hounds, like piranhas on one, just 4 stack. Pick up their easy kill. That's just because the Athenian Sages wanted to grab those oracles. Could cost them more though. Quig got the loop around.
Renjaru, beads available. Oathhh to the sky. The dunk down a little in front. Renjaru holds onto his bead, stands his ground. But against 3, it's hard for one man to come out on top this time. It's the Eldritch Hounds who have found 2 picks on the left side of the map. And all that lead that the Sages have been building up, found 2. They've got Privative. Toothpicks. I had to think for a moment what you were trying to go at with that one. But the lead that the Sages have built, I mean, it was 2,500 almost earlier on. It's down to nothing. In fact, the Hounds are the ones who have the lead now.
The Hounds just play with more confidence on map, and it has added up. Keep making these proactive plays. Strike 1,000 times eventually. You'll hit true. Shortfuse, rotation around. Privative on the chase. Athenian Sages, they might want this engagement, but I'm not certain that it's one they would win with the Eldritch Hounds as healthy as they are. Go ahead, take the purple buff. The Hounds not overly concerned with just this small skirmish. The big prize could be this tier 1 in mid that Crimson is just casually shooting his little spirit balls at. But it's the Primal Fury that was my concern and the concern of the Sages. Down to 50%, DMB's got eyes, but how could he walk in?
Crimson's got ult. Will he fire it off at any point? No, throws out Unstable Vortex.
That was close. That was more dangerous than I thought it would be.
Yeah, throws off a little too far to the right, though. They had to pull that Gold Fury up and towards the Hound side of the map just to avoid that one. But it will be Fury for the Athenian Sages. That brings the lead back to their side, but Privative might get caught out here, especially when the portals will deliver the team right to him. Able to blink away, but only so far. Double stun onto Oathhh. Should not get Privative too much further through, even with all that movement speed. They've got some of their own with Threshold from Crimson.
That should be it, and it is. Oathhh, credit for the kill this time around. Privative, once more, caught out, trying to make sure his team makes it out alive. And the Eldritch Hounds are able to make him pay for it. Tier 1 in mid, the most valuable Tier 1 tower in the game. Be it a fight around the gold or the Pyromancer, generally teams will retreat towards the center of the map. Now that bastion of safety just a bit further away. Does not go unanswered as Dishonored is able to take out the Tier 1 on right himself. With game state as it is, it's the Athenian Sages who are only just now able to re-establish their lead. And the lead, not exactly sizable where you'd want it. Mid lane still favoring the Hounds. Soul lane, I believe, a slight advantage to Dishonored, maybe a half level there. Parity in the jungle, parity in support, lead to the Hounds in the dual lane as well as far as hunters are concerned. So your carries on the Chaos side just a bit stronger.
DMB takes the ult from Renjaru, no problem. Will be healed up by Quig on the dash out. Jangaru tries to go for a purple steal instead, starts up a fight, misses the mez, gets the stun. DMB goes down anyways. The River's Rebuke will hold 3 in place, but there is no one to follow up with Quig this time around. A pick on the DMB starts well for the Athenian Sages. Crimson should be able to get out of this one, no problem. Even with the World Serpent up for Dishonored, won't use it, even with Crim making the greedy play of going for a back camp.
You just got to be worried about Crimson responding in kind with his own ultimate. So if you get the sound cue of World Serpent, just channel Janus ultimate, and you're probably out of that situation regardless. If you're hugging a wall, even if Dishonored hits the knock-up, you're getting through it. So perhaps a good decision to hold on to that massive team fight disruption ultimate. But I tend to agree, man. With Quig locking down as many people as he did for as long as he did in his own Tier 2 tower, you'd expect a bit of a faster rotation, but instead it was Ducky who holds his own on the right-hand side. Pyro to the Sages, Oathhh up, dunk's good!
Finds 2 with it and takes out 1. Right at the tail end, Dishonored's beads are down. He goes in to still fight Oathhh. One more charge to get out, and Eagles Rally blocks off Jangaru's path along with a Riptide. But Jangaru is just fine. Not a lot of damage going his way. Instead, it's all on top of Dishonored.
No
Aegis
way.
from Oathhh, but the tower shot was just a little too strong. At the tail end, it is a 2-for-1 trade for the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, I wonder, even if you Aegis tower shots, the scaling continues. So Aegising first shot may have been a mistake there had Oathhh held it for second. Could have survived. Regardless, a massive play from the jungler is what opens up the 2 picks. The Eldritch Hounds are able to grab Dishonored and Shortfuse in the grayscale for at least 5 more seconds. Hounds 4 stacks on the right-hand side. Minion wave already here. That's a free Tier 2. The Sages nowhere to be seen. Maybe able to push into the Tier 1 in mid. I'd like to see it attempted, at least poke some damage in there, but Renjaru gonna play it safe, perhaps concerned about the rotation power of ErupTCrimson. And the Eldritch Hounds say if they're not gonna check us on the Tier 2, surely they don't do it on the fire.
Well, they started it up. Privative and Shortfuse now on the way. They'll spot that the fire started. Bubble is broken by the portal. Now Privative slowed down and being batted away. Dishonored, though, coming from the backside to provide some backup, but the walls are up, and Dishonored can't get in. Instead, it's Privative who falls down to the might of the Eldritch Hounds, who have found their 9th kill of the game. They won't be able to do the Fire Giant after this, but Renjaru and Jangaru trade lanes for a moment to take out each other's respective towers.
That is such an unfortunate circumstance for Dishonored. A lucky wall is what stops him from getting involved. Nothing lucky about that one. Renjaru just not where he needs to be. Oathhh able to shut him down. I see it leaning forward. Yeah, both his relics are up, but
Did he unbound him?
in a situation like that, do the relics even get you out alive? I'm not so certain. I suppose if you die and you know it's going to be a 40-second respawn time, you might as well try regardless with the Fire Giant now being pulled out by the Eldritch Hounds. Dishonored will not have to contend with the Yemoja ultimate this time around. Instead, he's got to deal with Oathhh, who just deals too much damage.
Into the World Serpent, goes towards DMB, misses the first swing, holding out under the Fire Giant pit for as long as he can. And the third one to get out. Privative goes back in. Second verse, same as the first. Privative, though, not able to take the Fire Giant in a close attempt. And Portal is there to cut off one path. Shortfuse caught out by Ducky, who will slam through. Ducky pre-beats the knockup. And the Eldritch Hounds with Fire Giant on 5 will still continue their W key through the map.
And why would you stop? Jangaru slammed 2 autos into Ducky's chest and saw them bounce off, essentially. This Bellona has been a massive thorn in the Sage's side. Not only Is it a smart matchup in a double hunter? But Ducky just too tanky to be dealt with at this point. I mean, let that be a lesson. Just stand between the Tier 2 and the Phoenix. Creates infinite space for his team. Tier 2 will fall, and Tier 2 on left, likely not too far behind it. Assuming that's where the Hounds want to go. The safer play would be to just go ahead and move into the Oni Fury, and that does seem to be the call. Don't expect a response from the Sages this time around. Fire Giant on 5 of the Hounds means you generally need the unofficial 6-man, a Tier 2 or a Phoenix, to help you out in some of these team fights. I like this call, though, from the Sages. Go ahead, deal with that Trebuchet on right, so you don't have to contend with a natural push from the Eldritch Hounds AI. And instead, now, you can fully dedicate your attention to wherever the Hounds show face. Likely will be a 4-stack on left. Wouldn't be surprised to see Oathhh act as solo agent in mid. Wonder if he's got enough gold to upgrade. Not quite yet, so probably won't be headed back anytime soon, unless he wants to pick up like a Tier 1 item.
Now, Eldritch Hounds holding on to about a 3,500 gold lead, the largest gold lead we've had so far this game. Jangaru and Privative maybe doing a full 5-stack to the left side of the map. See if they can pick off any of the Eldritch Hounds, but Crimson nowhere to be seen. Might be Oathhh, but Oathhh had a ward, spotted them out. Up to the sky, Renjaru to half HP, through space and time, and a double dunk by Oathhh and Ducky. 2 off the map in an instant. The World Serpent to try and escape for Dishonored, but with all these portals, with all this damage, the Hounds have taken 2 off the map and make it 3 with Shortfuse. No, able to get out just in time and back to the fountain.
Mid-Phoenix wishes it could retreat, but is stuck here on the podium and taken out by the Hounds. Both ADCs down for 30, push into the Titan.
Let's see the damage on this Jormungandr from Dishonored. He's got to bring it back for his team, but Privative is gone. Shortfuse with no ult, no chance to get in, and no defense on Dishonored. That's a double for Dude Man Pro, and the Eldritch Hounds will remain undefeated in the SCC Championship. It's a triple for Dude Man to end the game, and the Eldritch Hounds are your first NA team going to the group stage.
Eldritch Hounds prove once more that playing with confidence is just enough. I mean, you called it in game 1. The Hounds, they'll play like they're 5K up from 5K down, and they do it once more. Impressive, impressive stuff. It's just concise decision-making that wins them the day.
Eldritch Hounds, man. I don't know who's going to stop them. So far, it hasn't been anybody from the SCC. We'll have to see
like
what some of the
team?
SPL teams have to offer against a team like this, but maybe playing with confidence can give this team a little boost that they need. We'll see them in January at the group stage, but for now, that's it for us on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk to break it down.
That's right. We'll be seeing them in January at the group stage, Trelly, where they join teams like the Titans, the Ravens, and if I remember correctly, the one that they'll have to potentially go up against the Valkyries again, and again, making true what BennyQ was tweeting out just a few days ago as they were preparing for it. Again, a very, very phenomenal win for them, joining their group over there. And so this is a team, again, if you're looking at them, we said the same thing about Hex Mambo, and I think now we can say it for sure about the Hounds. That's the kind of performance all week against every team that you need to have if you want to be able to say that you're going to take down an SPL team and make it to the World Championship.
And it makes my job so hard because
because they just won.
Yeah, when we come up here, I gotta look at both sides, but it's so difficult to give anyone a fighting chance up against the Eldritch Hounds. We saw shimmers of greatness there. I would say Shortfuse in game number 1 on the Rat was playing extremely well. The Sages were able to find picks. It's just the way the Hounds defend and also just find farm throughout the map. Their farm game is so solid. They're fighting. I guess Mifflin and J-Mac have decided it's just the confidence, and I tend to agree. They just believe they're better. Even if it's not true, in this case, they certainly played better, and I think it always works out for them. It's so difficult for any of these SCC squads to try and stand up to the Eldritch Hounds at the moment. And I think the addition of Ducky to this team as well has made them even more clean.
And it's been, I mean, just impeccable. Ducky, we know, phenomenal solo laner. Honestly, it kind of, like, you see, belied by his win rate in the SPL. Someone who is always highly, highly coveted. And I think that we've got to see a lot of that gameplay, forcing the tier ban earlier this game. Still able to have this kind of performance on a Bellona. I also have to give the credit out because, well, a lot of everybody else was just playing meta picks. Crimson's just good, as it turns out. The Janus, something that not most people are going to get away with. And yet he ends up, admittedly, 1 and 2 if you just cover up the assist column. Doesn't look that great. 11 assists, though, and as you were highlighting,
He did hit ults.
that were hit left and right. And sometimes that is all that matters for the Hounds. Trelly, again, with this win, they move forward to the SWC group stages, but that does not mean that the Sages are out. They actually have one more opportunity. We saw the Storm playing a little earlier. And so the Sages will still have to fight. Good news is that the Hounds did what they just did to everybody else.
Yeah.
So Sages maybe don't need to take it as too much of a slight against them and can carry their heads high as they move forward. But Trelly, pressure's back on suddenly for all of them, everybody that's left, because there's only 2 teams that are left in the tournament now. The Hounds moving forward means that there's only one spot for those 2 teams to fight for. And pressure mounting, winning this best of 3 suddenly one of the most important things. If you want your Season 9 to continue into the beginning of 2023, then you got to do it right here and right now. Match 15 for the Sages and the Storm. Winner goes on. Loser is done for the year.
That is some scary stuff. Because at the very least, the Hounds are gone, right? So now, I think the Sages got to have a short memory. Get that loss out of your brain quickly, because it was a very quick matchup. I mean, losing in 23 minutes, not always the ideal situation, but sometimes it's better to just get it over with instead of letting it drag out. And now, I think both of these teams have looked better just from the start of this tournament, right? Think about the Storm and the Sages on day number 1 to now. You can see the improvement. You can see the confidence building. So I'm excited to see exactly what both of these squads can do. They've got some hard hitters on both of these rosters for sure. And with your season on the line, hopefully some interesting drafts come out as well.
That's, I think, where everybody's mind is maybe at right now, is what kind of drafts we're going to see. Because I've been thinking about the Ratatoskr a lot. We saw Shortfuse have a pretty good game with it. Dame played it beautifully the first couple of games today. And so there's some pressure, I think, on the Sages, actually, to try and control the Storm, considering the tear that the Storm has been causing for everybody. But that matchup, it's going to be taken a little bit before we get into it. We're actually going to kick it to a quick break. Gives you plenty of time to grab some snacks while you can. It's a nice early afternoon, at least here in the East Coast. So grab some snacks, grab some drinks. We'll be right back with the last set of the tournament.